A terrifying monster, the Babadook, threatens to break into Amelia and her son's house. It's not just any creature. It's an emotional monster that has been growing inside Amelia for having avoided the grief after the death of her husband. After this analysis, you'll never look at this movie in the same way again. Amelia wakes up startled from a nightmare that relives the accident in which her husband died. Samuel, distressed, tells her he dreamed again of a presence that wants to eliminate them. Together they check the room, as they now routinely do. Before going to sleep, she reads him a story. He promises to protect her from the monster. As he sleeps, he hugs her tightly, but Amelia pulls away, turning her back to him and ending up alone. The next morning, Samuel builds homemade weapons. A shot breaks a window. Amelia loses her patience. Later, he insists on showing her a magic trick. He makes paper flowers appear and makes her smile, but when he hugs her too tightly, she reacts abruptly. She later regrets it. While working at a nursing home, Amelia receives a call from the school. Samuel brought a crossbow with darts to school. They tell her he needs constant supervision. She replies that what her son needs is understanding, not surveillance. On the way back, she tries to lift Samuel's spirits. They stop at the supermarket, where Samuel tells a girl and her mother that his father died while taking them to the hospital when he was about to be born. Amelia is embarrassed and tries to apologize, but the girl's mother only offers an awkward comment and walks away quickly. At the park, Samuel plays on a swing, while Amelia talks with her sister Claire. Ruby, Claire's daughter, plays like a flawless princess. Claire confesses that Ruby no longer wants to share her party with Samuel, and that maybe this year it would be best to celebrate Sam's birthday on his actual date. Amelia nods, but she can't hide the emotional blow. Everything in the film functions as a symbolic expression of Amelia's emotional state. It reflects a grief that has not been processed and a pain that's been ignored for far too long. Amelia lost her husband on the same day her son was born, and it was such a powerful and painful blow that she chose not to confront it emotionally. She doesn't speak of it, gets upset when others do, and celebrates Sam's birthday on a different date. But what is repressed doesn't disappear. It's only stored, and sooner or later finds a way to come out. Speaking of grief, one of the most well-known ways to understand this process is the 5-stage model proposed by Swiss psychiatrist Elisabeth Kübler-Ross. This model suggests that when we face a significant loss, we tend to go through 5 emotional stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Though it's worth noting that these stages do not always appear in that order, nor do they follow a linear path. If we pay attention to the film, we can see Amelia experiencing each of these stages. She's now completely trapped in denial. Later on, as the other stages manifest, I'll point them out. Just a quick pause to say that if you're enjoying this video and haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot and really helps me keep making more videos and content like this. Alright, let's get back to the story. Samuel climbs the swing unnoticed. Only when he screams from the top does Amelia realize, horrified. That night, Samuel picks a new book, Mr. Babadook. The story speaks of a terrifying creature that, once seen, can no longer be ignored. As they continue reading, the tension builds. The final page is brutal. It promises to reveal the true face of the Babadook and assures you that you'll wish you were dead. Samuel bursts into tears. Later that night, Amelia hides the book, but she cannot rest. A noise startles her. She hides under the covers and eventually falls asleep. At dawn, Samuel wakes her. Exhausted, Amelia leaves Samuel with her sister and heads to work. Her colleague, Robbie, notices her condition and offers to cover for her. She accepts. With no clear direction, she wanders the city. Then she sees 10 missed calls, all from Claire. When she arrives at her sister's house, Claire confronts her. Samuel's been talking about the Babadook. Amelia apologizes, but Sam interrupts, shouting that the Babadook is real. He sets off a firecracker, leaving everyone tense. Back in the car, Samuel insists that the Babadook will scare them before showing itself. Amelia tries to calm him, but when he says the monster will enter her room and devour her from the inside, she loses control and tells him there will be no party with Ruby. Later, Samuel goes to the basement dressed as a magician. In front of his stuffed animals and a photo of his parents, he performs tricks, sets off firecrackers, and, looking at the portrait of his father, promises to catch the Babadook. Amelia sees that the basement door, which must always remain closed, is open. She confronts Samuel, reminding him that the room holds his father's things. But Samuel, hurt, shouts that he was his dad too. At that moment, Robbie arrives with flowers for Amelia and a model airplane for Samuel. But the boy replies that he's not sick. Amelia, uncomfortable, says he can't go to school because he's disobedient. Samuel, indignant, confronts her and reminds her that she herself has said the opposite. He reproaches her for not allowing him to have a birthday or a father. The denial in which Amelia has been living has had consequences, especially in her relationship with Samuel. From the beginning, we notice an emotional rejection of him. And yes, Samuel may come across as difficult, but his behavior is a direct response to the lack of affection. He's a deeply anxious child who needs to be seen and feel loved, but every display of coldness from his mother only feeds that anxiety. When he doesn't feel accepted, his anguish grows and manifests in increasingly intense and hard to manage behaviors. Why does Amelia feel this rejection toward her son? On one hand, because she's not been able to emotionally separate Samuel from the memory of her dead husband. Every time she looks at him, she relives that loss. Samuel reminds her of the most painful day of her life. To make matters worse, his direct personality also reminds her too much of her husband Oscar. Since Amelia has tried to avoid everything that brings that loss to mind, she keeps her distance. But I think there's more. I also think that deep down, Amelia harbors certain resentments toward her son that she doesn't care to acknowledge. And that doesn't mean she doesn't love him. Raising a child alone after such a profound loss, with all the physical, emotional, financial, and social challenges it brings, can lead to thoughts that are very difficult to accept. If we hadn't had Samuel, Oscar would still be here. I'd be less exhausted or wouldn't feel so alone. As painful as they are, those thoughts do arise. Does that negate the love? No, but sometimes we have emotions that seem contradictory and yet coexist. We can deeply love someone and, at the same time, feel frustration, anger, or resentment. Human emotions are not black or white, though often we try to believe they are. Amelia does love Samuel, but because she's been unable to process her grief, that love is clouded by everything unresolved. That night, Amelia finds the basement door open. She goes down and discovers a figure Samuel has assembled using his father's clothes and hat, with his violin placed on the chest. She hurriedly packs everything away, but upon seeing an old photo of the two of them, she stops, embraces it, and puts it away. As I said before, pain does not disappear when we deny it. It only changes form. In this story, that pain takes the shape of the Babadook, a dark figure that persists and unsettles. The Babadook is the symbolic representation of the grief Amelia never wanted to face, all the unresolved emotions she's been repressing since her husband's death, the embodiment of everything unspoken, of all that, if not processed, takes possession of you. It seems to me that what triggered this process was Claire's refusal to keep celebrating Samuel and Ruby's birthdays together. Let me explain why I believe that moment was so significant. From the beginning, we saw Samuel was anticipating the arrival of a monster, and that likely had to do with the approach of his birthday, which also coincides with the anniversary of Oscar's death. It's a charged date. It's very likely that, year after year, this time has been particularly difficult for Amelia, when she perhaps becomes more irritable, more withdrawn, more absent. What Samuel was anticipating then was the arrival of the emotional monster that takes hold of his mother every year. When Claire refused to continue celebrating the birthdays together, Amelia no longer had a way to keep avoiding that day. The last barrier she used to protect herself from facing her pain collapsed, and it was precisely the following night that the Babadook appeared. And there's an interesting detail here. We know that Amelia used to write children's stories. So what does it mean that this book suddenly appears without an author and without an ending? It may be a clue that the Babadook doesn't come from outside, but is born from within her. And the fact that it has no ending could also mean it's a story still being written as Amelia attempts to cope with her inner chaos. And what did Amelia do when she read it? She hid it, because she's still in denial. She's trying to cover up what she doesn't want to see. But now the basement door has opened. And that basement is clearly a metaphor. It represents that corner of her mind where she stored everything she doesn't want to face. Oscar's belongings, the photos, the memories, and the pain. Her intense reaction upon seeing those things makes it clear that she hasn't entered that space in years. And now that the door has opened, the repressed, the Babadook, has finally been released. During dinner, Amelia bites into a piece of glass hidden in her food. Her plate contains more shards, but Samuel's is clean. He denies having done it and says it was the Babadook. Amelia, increasingly unhinged, sends him to watch television. While Samuel watches a magic DVD, Amelia finds the photo she has stored. Now, Oscar's face is crossed out. She goes to confront Samuel. He runs for his crossbow. In the struggle, he accidentally hits her and she falls to the floor. From his room, Samuel shouts, "Do you want to die?" Shortly after, he sees something invisible moving along the walls. Suddenly, a loud bang shakes the house and Sam screams. Amelia enters and finds the wardrobe toppled over and Samuel hiding under the bed, repeating, "Don't let it in." Amelia finds the Babadook book again. This time, she tears it apart and throws it in the trash. But that night, a noise from downstairs once again disturbs her sleep. At Ruby's party, Samuel clings to his mother, but she forces him to go play. And Amelia notices the judgmental stares of the other mothers. One woman asks if she still writes children's books. Amelia says she doesn't anymore. Meanwhile, in the treehouse, Ruby humiliates Samuel. She tells him that her mother never visits because she finds the house depressing. Then she says he doesn't even have a father. Samuel insists he does, but she finishes by telling him that his dad died because he didn't want to be with him. Downstairs, Amelia and Claire argue. Claire tells her she's still stuck in Oscar's death and she can't stand anyone mentioning him. Amelia denies it and says she's moved on because she doesn't talk about him anymore. She also reproaches Claire for never visiting. Claire confesses she can't stand being around Sam. Upstairs, Ruby goes even further. She tells Samuel that not even his own mother loves him. He pushes her, and Ruby falls and breaks a tooth. Amelia leaves with Samuel crying in the back seat. He insists he didn't mean to hurt his cousin. He just wanted her to believe him. He kicks the seat until Amelia slams on the brakes and screams, "There is no Babadook." The boy falls silent, but then starts screaming at something invisible. His body stiffens, convulses. Amelia panics and takes him to the hospital. The doctor explains that it was a seizure caused by anxiety. He tries to reassure her. All children see monsters, he says. But Amelia insists that what's happening with Samuel isn't normal. She asks for something to help them sleep. The doctor agrees and prescribes sedatives, warning that they're strong for a child and may cause temporary drowsiness or nausea. That night, Samuel hesitates before taking the medicine. He asks if something is wrong with him. Amelia tells him he needs rest, though he confesses he's afraid she might die. She avoids the topic and gives him the pills. Samuel asks if that will make the Babadook go away. She says yes, but firmly tells him never to mention it again. He tells her he loves her, and she barely responds, "I love you too." The next morning, Amelia sleeps deeply. Everything seems calm until she hears 3 knocks at the door. When she opens it, she finds the book restored. She checks the book. There are new pages. The woman in the story, identical to her, kills her dog, her son, and then herself. The book threatens her. "The more you deny me, the stronger I get." She burns it. She tries to tell Claire, but her sister refuses to listen and tells her that if she's unwell, she should go to the police. The phone rings again. On the other end, she hears only a guttural voice. "Ba ba ba, Dook, Dook, Dook." She goes to the police and tries to report that someone is harassing her with a book of violent images, but since she already burned it, she has no proof. The officers don't take her seriously. Before leaving, she notices a coat and hat on a rack, just like the Babadook's. Once the basement door is opened, the repressed, the Babadook, began to manifest more and more. Growing stronger the more Amelia continued to deny it. She tore up the book, threw it away, and demanded that Sam promise never to mention it. But the book itself warned, "The more you deny me, the stronger I get." That's how unprocessed trauma works. The more you suppress it, the more power it gains. Amelia has done everything possible to avoid and rid herself of it. But the book returns with new pages. The Babadook keeps coming back, each time closer, threatening to possess her. She picks up Samuel at Mrs. Roach's house. Samuel, without a filter, mentions that she has Parkinson's. Amelia scolds him, but the neighbor takes it kindly. When the woman says Samuel reminds her of his father, who also said whatever he thought, Amelia abruptly ends the conversation. Back home, the kitchen is a mess. When she moves the refrigerator, Amelia finds a hole filled with cockroaches. Later, she's frantically cleaning when there's a knock at the door. 2 social workers sent by the school. Amelia tries to act normal, but her appearance and the state of her house give her away. Samuel, half asleep, mentions the drugs his mom gave him. She tries to explain, but it's already too late. When she takes them to the kitchen and tells them about the infestation, the hole is gone. Warren hands her a card. "We'll be back in a week." As I mentioned at the beginning of this analysis, everything in the film can be read as an expression of Amelia's emotional state. The sequence we just seen, the house in disarray, Amelia discovering the cockroaches crawling from beneath the wallpaper, and frantically cleaning the mess, precisely represents how the emotions she hasn't been able to process are starting to press from within, and how she keeps trying to cover them up. But little by little, like those cockroaches, pain also begins to slip in where it can no longer be contained, growing invisibly, until it becomes too impossible to ignore. That night, Amelia reads Sam a story, and he falls asleep, but she can't rest. A noise alerts her. The door opens on its own, and a black shadow crawls across the ceiling. Before falling onto her, she turns on the lamp, but there's nothing there. Samuel wakes up, confused. To stay awake, Amelia turns on all the lights and raises the television volume. At dawn, she calls work pretending to be sick and finally falls asleep. But it isn't long before Samuel wakes her up, nauseated and hungry. She loses control and yells that if he's hungry, he should eat shit. Samuel backs away, frightened. Amelia returns to bed, but soon regrets it. She apologizes and suggests going to Wally's. At the restaurant, Samuel eats in silence. Amelia tries to smile, but a sudden pain in her jaw interrupts her. Later, while driving, she feels cockroaches crawling up her leg. She panics, accelerates, and crashes. An angry man confronts her, but she, in shock, doesn't respond and drives away. Back home, she gets into the bathtub fully clothed. Samuel watches, worried. She brings him in too, with an unsettling tenderness. Samuel tells her she doesn't want her to go away, and Amelia replies that she's not going anywhere. Later, Amelia comes up from the basement holding her husband's violin. She lies down with it as if it were a body. Samuel tries to touch her, but when he accidentally touches the instrument, she reacts aggressively. At this point, we can identify the depression stage. Kubler-Ross described it as the moment when there's no longer energy to keep fighting the loss, but there's still no clarity to accept it. It's marked by hopelessness, lack of motivation, and a disconnect from the world. We see this stage reflected in Amelia as she sits in the bathtub fully clothed, with a vacant stare, or when she falls asleep, hugging Oscar's old violin. She no longer tries to deny it, but she also has no strength to keep moving forward. That night, Amelia has nightmares. Voices, shadows, presences. Upon waking, Samuel has disappeared. Amelia searches the entire house, guided by dark whispers, until she finds him speaking to Mrs. Roach on the phone. She snatches the receiver from him. Then she cuts the phone line with a knife and throws the keys out the window. Samuel can only say that he doesn't want the Babadook to come in. Amelia replies that she won't let anyone in and locks all the doors and windows. She forces Samuel to take his pills, though he only pretends to swallow them. Amelia falls asleep in front of the TV and dreams that Samuel is dead on the couch. She wakes up in shock, holding a knife. She tries to act normal, serves Samuel ice cream, behaves as if everything is fine, but her sanity is already in ruins. She sees Samuel go down to the basement and follows him, but what she finds is not her son. It's Oscar. He speaks to her and tells her they can be together again. She just needs to give him the boy. But when his voice distorts, Amelia realizes it's not real and runs in terror. Here we see the bargaining stage. It's the phase when one tries to go back. The familiar what-ifs begin to surface. What if I had done something differently? What if I could change things? In Amelia's case, this stage appeared just now when she encountered the figure of Oscar in the basement, offering her the chance to be together again, if she gave him the boy. It's a fantasy of having her husband back, based on the idea that if Samuel had never been born, Oscar might be alive. The monster pursues Amelia. She runs to Samuel's room, but the Babadook comes in through the chimney. She repeats that it's not real, but the creature reaches her and possesses her. Her body twists, her face empties, and she begins to act savagely. She kills the dog without hesitation, and then pulls out one of her teeth. Samuel locks himself in. Amelia tries to coax him with a gentle tone, but he no longer trusts her. She snaps and kicks the door down. Terrified, Samuel wets himself. Amelia confesses that sometimes she wishes it had been him who died, and there are days when all she wants is to bash his head against the wall. Here, Amelia's rage reaches its peak. In the anger stage of grief, it's very common to feel anger toward the person who died, oneself, others, or even life itself. In Amelia's case, that anger has been slowly growing. At first, we only saw glimpses of it, like when she sarcastically complained that the other woman's big problem was not being able to go to the gym. But over time, her irritation intensified, especially towards Sam. She became increasingly impatient with him, treated him harshly, until she finally exploded. She screamed at him to eat shit, and now she confesses that sometimes she wishes it had been him who died, not Oscar, and that there are days when she just wants to smash his head. It's brutal, but it also shows what happens when pain has no outlet. Samuel screams that she's not his mom, that he knows she doesn't love him, but that it's not her fault, it's the Babadook's, and that even so, he will always love her. He distracts her with firecrackers and manages to escape. Samuel defends himself with his homemade weapons and manages to injure her. Amelia pretends to have come back to her senses, but Samuel notices something is off and stabs her in the leg to escape. He takes her to the basement, where he sets off a trap and knocks her unconscious. Instead of fleeing, he stays with her. He speaks to her lovingly, reminds her that she was the one who let the Babadook in, and that now she has to make it leave. She vomits a black liquid and collapses. Samuel manages to revive her, and Amelia returns to herself. But the peace is short-lived. A presence drags Samuel down the stairs. Amelia protects him and, for the first time, doesn't run. The Babadook reappears, taking the form of Oscar and reliving the accident through his words. Amelia experiences it as if it were happening again, but then she hears the Babadook's sounds, and this time she chooses to face it. She yells that it has no power, and that if it touches her son again, she'll destroy it. The Babadook takes shape, but she doesn't back down. She screams so forcefully that it shatters the windows. The monster shrinks and disappears into the shadows. All that remains is a coat and hat. Amelia understands it hasn't gone, it's only quieted. She locks it in the basement and keeps the key. At Amelia's darkest moment, Samuel didn't give up. As he had promised from the beginning, he would protect her from the monster. That unconditional love is what woke her up, what made Amelia purge all the pain she'd been holding in, and for the first time, dare to confront the Babadook. And that's when the stage of acceptance arrived. We saw it when the Babadook took the form of Oscar and recreated his death. But this time, Amelia didn't run. She relived everything and broke down, but she also stood up and faced it, yelling that it had no power over her. Days later, the house is totally different. After everything she's been through, Amelia has finally confronted all those emotions she had repressed since Oscar's death. And by doing so, she can now separate the loss of her husband from the birth of her son. Now she can look at Samuel and no longer see only pain, but also love. That's why, for the first time, she's able to celebrate his birthday on the actual day. Because that day, while it marks a loss, is also a reason for joy. In front of the social workers, Amelia is now able to speak about the day she lost her husband and gave birth to her son. She acknowledges that Samuel resembles Oscar. Now she embraces him, cares for him, and looks at him with love. Samuel continues playing and performing magic tricks. This time, Amelia watches him with a genuine smile. She plants black roses in the garden, a universal symbol of mourning. This time, she's not running from the pain, but facing it. The Babadook hasn't disappeared. It's still there. It murmurs, growls, and at times seems capable of overwhelming her again, but Amelia no longer runs. She regains her balance, looks it in the eye, and soothes it. She goes down every day and feeds it. Feeding the Babadook is a way of taking responsibility, because feeding is also caring. Amelia acknowledges that the pain exists, but she understands it can have a place, one where it doesn't overflow or take control of her life, as long as it's tended to. The worms, which feed on the dead and transform them back to the earth, also carry symbolic weight. If the Babadook represents the painful memory of her husband, then feeding it worms is accepting that he's gone and allowing his memory to transform. It's the act of accepting loss and beginning to move forward. The grief of loss, like the Babadook, doesn't disappear. It isn't overcome by simply turning a page. One learns to live with it. The emotions remain. They will always be a part of her. But now they no longer control her. She's faced them and given them a place, which makes them less dangerous. I'd like to end with something curious, something not many people know. There's a special edition of the Babadook, a pop-up book released as a collector's item. Only about 6,200 copies were produced. Inside that book is a passage that, for me, perfectly summarizes what this film is trying to say. You can't get rid of me. Dare to look me in the face. Try to put me in my place. I'll wreak havoc, but you might survive. Better give me a home, a corner of my own. Accept that I'm here, that I come from you. If you keep me small, I just might leave you in peace. I only said I might. Because we all have our own Babadook. Grief, pain, trauma we wish we could bury forever, but we can't. They're part of us, and the more we deny them, the more they possess us. So, as we saw in the film, perhaps it's not about getting rid of the Babadook, because you can't. It's about learning to live with it, to look it in the eye, to understand it, to give it a place, and to tend to it without letting it dominate us. When pain has a space, it no longer needs to consume everything. Thanks for staying until the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it. And you and I'll see you in the next one.